Good morning, everybody. We're just kind of getting settled in here, and we have Truls on, which I'll introduce him in a moment. But we're going to move around locations real quick, so we'll get started here in just about 1 minute. So hang tight.
Okay, that's better, I think.
All right, and we are live, Truls. Why we get situated here? How's that? How's that connection for you?
That's better for me. I have bad internet in another room, and we have 3 people working from home here.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that doesn't help either.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get started. I just wanted to welcome everybody. This is our third or our fourth week of Coffee with Monta. We kind of started this just to stay connected with folks and share with our community different things that are of interest of them. Like last week, we had the recovery gym on and talking about how to stay healthy and connected in your physical health while on COVID. And so this week, we are super lucky to have Truls Neal join us. Hey, Truls.
Hello.
So I've known Truls for a long time. He actually hired me. He was on our interview panel when I got hired as a recovery mentor for Bridges to Change back when he worked for Clackamas County Corrections in 2000, and I think it was 7 or 8, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You were just like 3 years out of prison.
Yeah.
Very green.
Yeah.
It was, and you were a fantastic mentor. You were really good.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. And so Truls, he's recently retired from the Department of Community Justice, Multnomah County, as the director, about a year and a half ago?
Yeah, in October of 2018, I left, yes.
Yeah.
To retire. Well, sort of retire. I do other things.
Yeah, I think everybody from the county, they retire and then they keep working in different capacities.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you have like over 30 something years working with corrections in some capacity, right?
Yes, that's right. I actually started as a jailer in Los Angeles, and after 3 months of that, I thought I wanted to be a cop. After 3 months of being a jailer, I was like, I do not want to be a police officer. Ended up being a deputy probation officer at Joplin Youth Center in Orange County, California, working with young boys that were in an open. It was an open ranch setting, and got to do a lot of good counseling, and really just fell in love with that kind of work of really trying to help people get on their feet.
Yeah.
So shortly after that, moved to Oregon about 28 years ago, and started working for Clackamas County at Work Release.
Yeah.
And again, Work Release was that was probably one of my favorite jobs, getting to work with people coming out of jail. And at that time, we had a federal contract with people coming out of prison too. So enjoyed that.
Yeah. And well, from your background, it really shows in just all the partnerships that you and I have had together throughout the years, and the contracts that we've shared and the programs, that you really come from a social justice perspective, being a leader in community corrections. So that's shined through, obviously, through all the programs that we've been through together. So what have you been doing what's been going on since you retired?
Well, one of the things I wanted to do, being an executive management, I found myself very disconnected from what I call the work.
Mm-hmm.
And felt like I wanted to get back in touch with that. Being able to retire and not have to work was a blessing, but I still wanted to do something with my time. And my wife is still working, and she was like, "You're not going to sit around the house and just order stuff off of Amazon." So I did some work with Pathfinders. I helped them with a grant that they got, a reentry grant, working with 5 prisons for people coming out of prison. I think they have 3 mentors that we employed to do that work. And that was part-time. And then I also worked for the MacArthur Foundation through Justice Systems Partners as a technical advisor to the city and county of San Francisco. And the MacArthur Foundation is a nonprofit. You probably heard of them if you've watched PBS, the John D.
Yeah.
and T. MacArthur Foundation. And
Yes, they have great commercials.
and they sponsor a lot of things that focus on improving society. And they have the part I work with is related to addressing mass incarceration. And the focus of MacArthur with what they call the Safety Justice Challenge is focusing on jail mass incarceration. As we know, when they talk about prison mass incarceration, where it really starts is at the jails. How you get people into jail, how you get people into that cycle. So our goal is to reduce jail populations safely and wisely, and to put people in the right places for the needs they may have. We work with the sheriff, the judges, the public defender, community health, behavioral health, and also parole. They don't have parole. We don't work with parole there. We work with probation because they have county level probation. Okay. San Francisco is unique because their government is, the city and county is one government. Unlike Multnomah County, where you have the city of Portland and Multnomah County, there it's just one. So it's a little easier to do some things. The other big goal of MacArthur is to address racial and ethnic disparities in the criminal justice system. And one of the things we see in San Francisco is you have 5% Black people in the city as residents, and you have close to 55% of the jail population is Black. So those are, obviously there's some systemic issues related to race that go beyond just law enforcement, having to do with education, poverty, and other issues that plague our whole society. But in San Francisco, we're trying to address those in a more restorative way, and also to be, key in on how we can be responsive to the Black community.
And then San Francisco is, known for being very liberal and open-minded. And then how would you, thinking about San Francisco in that way, how would you describe the corrections portion of San Francisco responding to racial and ethnic disparities in the work that you're doing with MacArthur there?
Well, I think it's similar everywhere. And and I'm glad you pointed out that it's a liberal progressive city, because I think it mirrors Portland in a lot of ways. There's a lot of similarities. I think you have a lot of well-meaning people that want to do the right thing. They want to address mass incarceration, they want to address racial and ethnic disparities. But in my sense of it is, the system has procedures and policies that are inherently against those two objectives. And I think some of that is looking at, how can we do this differently? I'll give you a simple example, and this isn't so much with racial and ethnic disparities, but just with mass incarceration in jails. One of the biggest problems jails and courts face is failure to appear. However, the system is set up that people have, in San Francisco and Portland are similar in this way, you have to come downtown, which is going to cost you at least $5 on a bus, or at least $20 in parking if you have a car, and time away from work, and providing childcare or whatever other needs you may have. And that may seem very simple or not a big hurdle for most middle-class folks, but for a lot of folks, vulnerable folks, people who may not have the means, that is a big lift. So one of the things that we've been talking about in California and San Francisco, but I've also been talking to folks here in Multnomah County about, is how can we change the laws so people can appear virtually? We're doing it right now. We're having a meeting virtually. You know, it's me. Why can't we do court that way? And part of the reason is because the way the laws are set up, having to, and I'm not a lawyer, but I think you all understand what I'm getting at, is that there's a requirement to be in person. And if we could remove that requirement to be in person, it would limit the failure to appears. We also think about our houseless folks who have all their stuff in one place, maybe in a shopping cart or on a bike. and they come to court, and what happens? You can't bring that in here.
And then it gets,
So there's a circular thing that happens is you get arrested for some petty crime, you get a notice to appear, you can't appear for all those plethora of reasons I just mentioned, and then they put a warrant out for your arrest. Then you get arrested. When you get arrested, oh, that's a failure to appear. So we can't let that person go. We're going to hold them in custody until they have a hearing for 30 days or whatever the term may be. So that's a huge systemic problem that I see. And I think when it talks about, when we talk about racial and ethnic disparities, Black and brown people, we are affected much more by those kind of systemic issues. As we see with COVID-19, Black folks are much more affected by those things because we're already vulnerable. We already have health disparities. We already have poverty issues, and those things become more compounded as we move through these systems.
yeah. I was talking with Mike Schmidt, the executive director of the CJC recently, and talking about how just everything that you just said is how our system is set up to create barriers for folks that need the help. And, when you, like, from a district attorney's perspective, community safety is number one. And when we think about it, is we're creating these barriers. People are going to jail. We're not doing anything to help them. And what we think is creating community safety is actually decreasing community safety, because we just keep this cycle of recidivism happening over and over and over again, using jail as the prescribing jail as what's going to help folks, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in San Francisco, the other thing I would have to say about San Francisco and Portland is they both are getting this funding from MacArthur.
Yeah.
That's actually how I heard about the San Francisco gig. But Portland is doing some really good work at addressing these same issues.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to go to Chicago last fall to the CJC conference and learn about all the work MacArthur is doing through the Safety Justice Challenge around the country. And I was just in awe of the amount of investment MacArthur is doing in this, and two, how it appears that folks all across the country, corrections folks, are collaborating to really take a look at this and make changes. And as we'll call us, even at the executive level, and where you were in your position, ground level workers getting the work done, compared to how do we shift political policy to help support us in making those changes? And do you see, I see criminal justice reform as a bipartisan issue, but do you think we're doing enough and quick enough in terms of changing policies to help support us in our different states, counties, cities to address these issues?
No, I don't. And I tell you though, the interesting thing is it's always fascinating to me how an emergency, COVID-19 is a great example, can push people to good solutions. In San Francisco and in Portland, they have reduced their jail population upwards of 30% in the last month. The way they've done it is by taking emergency measures to let people out of jail. Let me point out that 95% of the people in San Francisco's jail, I don't know for Multnomah County because it's not my area right now, but 95% of the people in jail in San Francisco are there pre-trial. Some of them are in there for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Going through the criminal justice system. And so the fact that you have people, pre-trial means that you're innocent until proven guilty. And again, I'm not saying these people are all innocent, I don't know that, and may be a risk to the community, but there are safer ways to keep people in the community and not spend all that money on keeping them in jail, which doesn't do anybody any good. Yeah. So yeah, I think the policies have to lead the practice. We can do a lot of great work on the ground with folks, as you know, and as your organization does, where people coming out of prison and jail, you're working with them. But the systemic problems are rooted in the policies and how we do the work. So I think there are some hopeful bright spots. I really like what's happening across the country with LEAD, which is law enforcement assisted diversion. That's kind of a trend in law enforcement. Another big trend in law enforcement is behavioral health professionals being called out to situations where it does not require the police. I know Joanne Hardesty here in Portland is a big advocate of having our 911 responders triage calls to determine, do the police really need to go out on this call, or can we send a mental health professional or someone else that can address the issue at hand that more appropriately. So I think those kinds of, those trends are good, but I do think change is slow in all bureaucracies, and there's a tendency to want to stay in the same lane you're in and stay on the course you're on. So again, like I said about COVID-19, I think it's really made a huge impact on jurisdictions to look at how they can release people from jail safely. And the question will be, what will the impact be on that? Well, right now we're seeing that there's no impact. Actually, the crime rate has gone down. Right. But the reality is we don't know if that's more related to the shelter in place orders. So there'll have to be some research and analysis on that. And MacArthur is doing that. They're looking at jurisdictions as the jail population goes down, and they're looking at these different factors. What happens afterwards? Do people commit more crimes? Are they appearing in court for their hearings and all those kinds of things? And of course, we're going to have the one-offs that are going to make us all look bad. I heard of one yesterday that someone from New York was released either from jail or prison. I didn't catch the detail on that, but and then committed a heinous crime, I believe killed somebody. Those kinds of things always have a tendency to be generalized to everyone. So have to keep an eye on those things.
They kind of end up overshadowing the other impact. But I think you're right. This is going to give, at least for the first time ever, it's going to give us some data to kind of look at the nuances around folks or counties and cities that are doing prison and jail or jail release. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is going to be, with the prisons, quite honestly, because the prisons don't have the same flexibility as the jails do, and that's because the prisons are under different policies and laws. Where a jail can release people because they're, like I said, most of them are pretrial, and they have the ability to do that under the law. But I think the prisons are having a much harder time.
Yeah, I think right now, from what I understand, speaking with our different corrections community partners across the Tri-County area, is that we have a bottleneck right now, because as you know and you're well aware, our short-term trans leave folks that have been released, it's taking them longer, obviously, to get to work, to move on from their housing sites. And so we're extending their programming, which we should, but then that's also bottlenecking the folks that need to be released or planned. And so I think they're working with the different counties around how they can support with resources to continue to release folks, but they are going to need more support, which is going to cost more money. It's going to take more resources to support them.
Oh yeah.
I do think it is, and it's been really interesting to see how COVID is just, everything is so tied together in this world, and just this thing impacts that thing. And like, it's been super fascinating in this, not so great time to kind of learn how we are everything is so interconnected and reliant on one another.
Yeah, I was just listening to someone today talk about how the importance of what your neighbors do. They were talking about states, but I think it's also true just as people here, community members, when you're, I had a daughter who wanted to go visit a friend, and I was like, you go visit a friend and you don't know who they've been around, and you come home, so it's a huge issue.
Yeah. Hey, I see Terry Myers is on Facebook, and she is a board member over at the Partnership of Safety and Justice. We have about a 10 or 20-second delay. So if you have any questions for Truls with what we're talking about, Terry, feel free to type them in the comment and I'll ask him if that comes through. What do you think the long lasting impact is going to be of COVID-19 around criminal justice? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I said, I think one of the good things I believe about criminal justice, especially places like Multnomah County and San Francisco, Los Angeles, these big jurisdictions, everybody's keyed in on data and outcomes. So I think there's a lot of paying attention to what's happening. Multnomah County has a tremendous data analyst, you know Abby Stamp, who runs Lipstick, and the sheriff's office has a good data people, as well as the district attorney and parole and probation. So I think they all work together, and they'll be looking at what the impact is. Ultimately, I think the desire is to safely reduce incarceration for folks, especially in jail, and to obviously put people in the right bucket for what their needs may be. And I think this will give a lot of insight into how that can be done, because I believe that's what people want to do in Multnomah County as well as in San Francisco. But I think the outcome will be good data, and what that data says will be, I'm optimistic that it'll be good, but we'll have to see.
Well, what we know right now is I heard a district attorney say on the news a while back, talking about initiative 44, which is, what did he say? He said, basically what he was implying, that if we don't send people to jail for low amounts of possession of controlled substance, that it was going to have a huge impact on criminal cases. And basically, he made it sound like we were going to turn into Gotham City if we did such a radical move like that. And so I don't see anything close to Gotham City happening right now, although everybody's at home. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, we'll have to see how people, it's still early, I think, in terms of even the shelter in place. It'll be interesting to see if this goes on, how much longer this goes on. I know in San Francisco, and this was just via the news, that they had a party, like an underground party of like 150 people that got together to have a party like young people want to do. And I'm like, ooh, that could be a trendy thing, kind of like during Prohibition, where people using these different means to do their thing. But anyway, I hope that we don't go on too long with it to press those kinds of things.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to wind down here. We're about almost 30 minutes into this thing, and I know you got probably a lot to do to close out your Friday. Any last things you want to share about your work?
Not so much about my work, but I'm growing out my hair.
Oh yeah, your COVID hair.
We don't have access to barber shops right now. I cut my own hair anyway. But in solidarity with those of you who cannot get to the barbershop, I'm not cutting my hair till we're done with this shelter in place. So we'll work with that. And the only other thing is, Monta and I have been talking about, something that is therapeutic for my mind is music. I love music. Music really helps me deal with things. And so I put together a COVID-19 playlist.
Oh, wow.
Anybody wants a link to that through Spotify, let me know, and I can send it to you. It's got some dark stuff on it, but it's got some hopeful stuff, because I believe that.
Who's your favorite artist on your playlist?
Hopeful things ahead.
Who's your favorite artist on your playlist?
There's an artist by the name of Sufjan Stevens who I absolutely love, because I think he just captures the feeling of despair in a hopeful way.
Mhm.
He has an album called Carrie and Lowell, about his mother and her dealing with mental illness and his life. He grew up in Eugene. And it just really resonates with me. It's kind of cathartic to listen to. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time this morning to chat with us and our supporters over here at Bridges, and really want to just underscore the value of your work that you're especially doing down in San Francisco. And as you know, one of our consultants for Bridges right now, like you're really helping us right now take a look at a lot of things. And so we appreciate everything you have to offer our community, and we wish you well and your family well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate Bridges to Change and the great work you do with people. It's just a fantastic organization. And thank you, Monta.
All right. You have a great weekend.
You too, man. Take care.
Bye bye.